All right, Paul, I wanted to go over, like we mentioned, how you've built this amazing team of assistant coaches and culture and this dynamic where, Pro Physique, and I mean, I've followed you for a long time, I've known you for a long time. And so it's been really, really cool to see how you've progressed. And so we'll dive into all those nuances. But first, can you just tell me how you dove into just building an online business and why you went the online route versus maybe PT sessions?
So I think people forget that this job that I have did not exist 10 years ago. There was no such thing as an online coach. So I never set out to be an online coach. I reached out 15 years ago to Lane Norton, 16 years ago, and said, hey, I kind of want to do a bodybuilding show because I saw some videos he had put on bodybuilding.com. And I ended up doing some shows, having some success. I was a pretty early adopter of like the forums, bodybuilding.com, muscular development, the earlier platforms where we were like bodybuilders were finding a way to like meet up on the internet. And so I put out pictures and videos of my prep, my meals. It was kind of nice because, this, you don't really have anybody in your gym or your circle that kind of does what you do. If you do, you're lucky, but very few do. So this was kind of like I would go in there and post my pictures and videos and I would comment on like Alberto Nunez and Eric Helms and like, some of the pillars of like the fitness industry right now were literally we were all just kids just putting out, doing what we loved. So that was kind of the early stages. I never actually set out to be a coach, but, after you have some success, Lane kind of became an online superstar. I mean, there was probably nobody more famous in the world than Lane Norton, 2010, 9, 12, somewhere in that range. Like literally, being friends with him, because he actually moved to Florida. We became very good friends. I was best man in his wedding. He was in my wedding party. Like we're still very close. I talk to him very frequently. But striking up that friendship, he didn't understand what was going on. I did. I was a little older. I had a career at that time. I worked in IT. He didn't realize that the fact that 50 to 100 people a day were messaging him to be their coach was a business. He was just a kid trying to make a living, right, out of college. So he kept asking me, would you want to coach? And I said, no, I have a job. Why would I want to coach? And he finally convinced me. He said, well, just take this kid needs help. He's gotten ripped off. He's got a bad coach. I can't help him. Help him. And you don't have to charge him anything. And he's like, I'll help you if you have any questions. And I think that was the aha moment. Like, oh, well, if Lane's going to help me, then I can figure this out, right? Because I think as coaches, that's our biggest fear is like, how do we know what to do? I don't have a degree. I don't have this. I don't have, so you have that kind of imposter syndrome going on. But when I have Lane Norton on my shoulder, I go, okay, I can't screw it up too bad. I can call Lane and we can talk if any have any questions. And I put my personal spin on it. My coaching style is a little bit different than Lane's, but that kind of was the beginning. That one client became 10, became 100, became, a business over the course of a few years. And to the point where, I actually one day was talking to my wife and she had gotten a job promotion. She was my fiance at the time, but she got a job promotion and an opportunity came up. We lived in Orlando. We would have to move to Jacksonville. It would be a big promotion for her. She worked for Chase, the bank. She was going to go from being a branch manager salary, which was nice, to a regional manager. So she was going to be in charge of all the branches in Jacksonville. And what's even cooler is there were none at the time. So she was going to be in charge of opening them, training the staffs. So it was a multi-year deal for her to go up there. Big jump in pay, quarterly bonus. And I said to her, you know what's funny? I'm actually making more money with my side hustle than I am my career salary job that I go to every day. And she's like, well, why don't you quit and we can move up there? And I was like, okay. The way I looked at it, I figured I would take a chance, quit my job. It would go terribly. I would just get another job. I have a master's degree. I have a ton of experience at this point. I was basically getting headhunted by like, IT talent recruits. So I had job offers. I loved my company, but quitting for me was like, yeah, I'll just quit. And then I'll go get another job in a few months when Pro Physique doesn't work out. Well, turns out when you quit your job, you go all in on your side hustle. Things took off. It got even crazier. So, yeah, that's basically how I got my start. There was never I want to be an online coach. It was like literally like, how can I survive? That was more the more the vibe.
It's funny that you say that though, because, I found you probably in like 2014, 2015 through Lane as well. And I think that we met at that Olympia back in like, I don't know, 2016 or something, 2015. And I remember thinking, even at that time, having a TV job, I just knew there was something about coaching that I had been doing for free with my friends. And I was so enamored by the process, and Lane was my coach and all of these things. Right. And so, similar to you, he wasn't directly mentoring me, but I felt like I had learned just from watching, right? From being a client and observing. And so it was so funny because I was telling somebody this the other day, like, did you ever think you would be a business owner? Absolutely not. I mean, I thought I loved my job until I realized, oh shit, maybe I don't love my job. And I have so much more over here that I would love to pursue. And kind of like you said, I mean, when you go all in on the side hustle, like you just know that there's more there. And I think it's cool that I've met so many coaches like you that are just killing it in the game and in the industry, and stemmed from a Lane like mentee, right? It's
Yeah.
interesting. So it's cool to see that that from him. But okay, talking about the online space, right? Because you kind of grew and you've seen obviously social media change and see what it is today and all of that. And when you first started it, there probably wasn't like a marketing strategy really. You were probably just like putting shit out there and hoping that it stuck. And so I'm wondering, like, how did you get your first, let's say 50 clients or so? Was it primarily word of mouth? Like, how are you using social media versus just people that were in person around you?
I mean, you're probably going to break a lot of people's hearts when you hear how I got my first 50 clients. Lane. So Lane and I had a partnership. So Lane basically said, hey, here's the thing. I get all these client inquiries. I can't take all these clients on. So we had an agreement. He would send me a client. If that client signed up with me, I would pay him a percent. He had this deal with like maybe 10 coaches. A few months after this started happening, he goes, dude, you're the only person paying me. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm sending clients to like 10 different coaches. You're the only one that sends me money every month. I'm like, are they retarded? Like, why aren't they sending you money? Like, this is like, do they understand the value of a lead? And so I just was like blown away by that. He said, you know what? I tell you what, I'm going to give you, you don't have to pay me anymore. He goes, all I want from you is to sponsor my podcast. And I go, okay. So instead of paying him money for the leads, I was paying him money for his podcast that he did with So He Lead. So I was like, what do you want me to put on the podcast? He goes, why don't you just write up a commercial, something? And I go, well, I don't want it to be a commercial. I want it to sound like you're just on the podcast. So he literally goes, hey, if anyone out there is looking for a coach, Paul Revelia is who I trust. He coaches my wife, he coaches my friends. If you're looking, something, it was just something like that. Well, so now I'm paying him for this commercial, and then I get even more inquiries. So now I'm like, dude, you literally like doubled the amount of client inquiries I get just by saying that on the podcast. So now I'm paying this less money than I was before and getting more clients out of it. So I actually started to reach a point where I was getting where Lane was at, where I was like, okay, I can't take on any more clients and be a responsible coach. Luckily I had that ethical, because we saw what happened with Brittany Dawn and, probably some other coaches in the space. When people are like, hey, take my $3,000, I want to work with you. And you have to learn to say no to that. It's hard because you're like, oh man, it's money. But I reached that point too. And, that's when you have to like, figure out either how to improve your processes, bring on an assistant, and like stop doing something they're doing. So that was my early inquiries, was 100% Lane. Then it started to be self-fulfilling prophecy. Then it was like, hey, you coached my friend. Hey, I saw a girl at a show. Hey, I saw a guy at a show. They said you were their coach, that type of thing.
Yeah, cool. I mean, and you're right. Like, there's definitely, I feel like most people listening, if not everybody, is like, damn, Paul's lucky as shit, right? Because that's obviously not, how most people get to start out, but that's kind of how it was. I feel like 10 plus years ago, you knew somebody who kind of got you into the industry, because I feel like online coaching, especially post COVID, like really just blew up. Like everybody's an online coach, and not just fitness, right? There's like business or VA coaches or Lord knows what else, posing coaches popping up, right? So let's talk about you building Pro Physique right now and what it is has become, right? And so question for you, and maybe I'm wrong, but was Steven your first assistant coach?
Steven was the absolute first hire for Pro Physique, and he was not hired as a coach. So
Okay.
you used a word there where people will say like, oh, Paul was lucky. I was not lucky to be in that position. What happened was I decided to make a change in my life, start doing competitive bodybuilding. The thing I didn't say during all that was what I did in that time. Whenever Lane would ask me to do a favor for him, I did it. One of his fantasy camps, he said, hey, would you come over and drive the bus, pick people up from the airport, go to the store, get food, like literally be his little bitch, right? And some people would be like, oh, I'm not doing that. He didn't even pay me. But I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be fun. I'm going to get to be around bodybuilders. I'm going to get to learn from Lane. And I'm telling you, that first fantasy camp that I went to, and I call it a fantasy camp, but it was basically, a combination of presentations, training, and camaraderie. Eric Helms, Alberto Nunez, Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, Lauren Conlon, bunch of my friends in Australia, like people that are still some of my closest friends. And that's how we all met. So the thing that Stephen did was I went back to school to study exercise science at USF under Dr. Bill Campbell. And I met Stephen in class. He was an odd duck. For anyone that doesn't know Stephen, he is extremely intelligent, but you would not know that by looking at him because he's muscular and he's got tattoos and he makes a lot of that's what she said jokes. So it's like he's very intelligent under this rough exterior. And I kind of like that about him. I was like, oh, he's kind of quirky and awkward. But when we were in class, clearly he was the one that had been studying and knew the answers. So when it came time for me to learn about exercise physiology and stuff, he was the guy that I would say like, hey man, can you help me understand the electron transport chain? Because I'm just not getting why these chemicals are interacting this way. Because I didn't take a lot of chemistry classes. And he would be like, yeah, let's talk about it. So he understood the concepts that I was trying to learn. So he had put in the work. So when it came to it, at the time that I asked him for my help, I was promoting a bodybuilding show. My business was growing. I was trying to go to college. I had a 2-year-old baby boy, so I had so many things pulling at me. And he just said, hey, if you ever need help with anything, let me know. I think the first thing he ever did for me was sweep my garage. Like, not kidding. I had a garage. I had bought a bunch of equipment from Rogue and it got delivered and the garage was a mess. I said, hey man, would you mind coming over today and helping me with my home gym? Sure, I'll come. Then he helped me with my bodybuilding show. And then, I was paying him hourly to just do like personal assistant stuff, go to the store, get clothes printed. And then one day I was like, dude, I have 300 client inquiries that I don't have time to answer. Do you want to be a coach? And that's how that started.
So what year was that?
Right. 2013.
Okay, got it.
14.
So you've got, is it 25 assistant coaches now?
Yeah, I don't call them assistant coaches. Basically, the way my business works, it's probably a little bit different than most businesses. If you are a coach for Pro Physique, you do not have to acquire clients. You do not have to have a platform. We provide all the email, we provide the update platform, we provide the billing system, and we provide the clients. So it's basically a turnkey solution to being a coach, right? A lot of the other coaching business I've noticed, it's like you're required to get your own clients. You just get the benefit of saying you're on the team, right? So maybe it looks good for you. That's not how we operate. So they are full-time coaches. So yeah, we're somewhere in the 26, 27, I don't know. We're about to bring on
counting on your website.
Yeah, I have a couple more that we're going to be bringing on here. So we just basically do it based on need and, filling niches. We're going to, coming into the new year, we always add a couple because we get a surge around the transformation challenge that we run. We get a lot of interest on that.
So I would say, at least from what I've noticed, I don't even know the exact percentage, but I think that there are businesses that operate like yours where people are like, it's a turnkey, like you said. And then I've seen the other side of things where it's somebody who doesn't have the same clout as you or the same, I guess, influx in leads, right? To where the solo coach, the main coach, head coach is not able to fill everyone else's rosters. So obviously that's not ideal, right? I would say don't bring on any coaches if you can't fulfill their rosters, at least to some extent, right? Get them to part-time fairly quickly. How quick? I know everyone's probably different, but when you bring on a new coach, how quickly are you filling their roster, and what to you is like full time, or what does that look like in terms of numbers?
Yeah, it's a good question because every coach has a difference, so we have coaches that, they hit their ceiling at 20 or 30 clients, and we have coaches that hit their ceiling around 100. 100 is probably the most that a coach can handle. And it probably takes, depending on the person, 6 months to a year to fill out your roster, because we're not sending you 30 clients the first month. We have 2 directors of coaching. So when you come on as a coach, your first couple clients, everything goes through the director. You got to put your plans together. You got to send out your videos. And it's got to go through the director. So we can't overburden the coach or the director. So it's more like once they gain our trust, once we know, like, okay, they're sending out quality plans, they're following the company guidelines, their videos are very good, they're replying on time. Okay, now we can kind of let them go. And then it's more of like a monthly, bi-monthly, like, check. We built our own proprietary system where the clients check in, all their payments go through. So we also collect a lot of data. We can see client retention. We can see client check-in to response times. So we can help them do better. We can be like, okay, why are you losing clients? Why is this client coach doing a really good job retaining people? So, we're becoming a little more sophisticated as a company. And it's ruffled some feathers. We've had some long-term coaches leave because we are demanding more and trying to do better. But as far as I'm concerned, the value that ProPhysique adds is, like I said, we're a turnkey solution. And so we're going to have a standard that we have to uphold. And the great thing about Steven is he's kind of like I always say he's my moral compass. The guy is just insanely focused on, making sure things are done the right way.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm thinking of like the coaches that I know on your team, and I know Lexi was one of the earlier coaches that you brought on, and even that was, I don't know what, 2018, I think. And between 2018 and now, you've gone from a 4 to like 25, 26, 27.
You nailed it. It was a lot of that COVID time. I mean, literally, I think we had 5 coaches in 2019, and by the end of 2021, we had, low 20s. So we've kind of plateaued a little bit for the last year, but we're also experimenting with some other things. My YouTube has exploded. It's gone from, 10,000 subscribers a couple of years ago to I just hit 510,000. So like that kind of growth, I had to start paying a little more attention to my YouTube, which also helps grow the business. We actually have 4 businesses within ProPhysique. We've got the coaching. We've also got our live events like Command the Stage that we do, once or twice a year, where we bring everybody in, do the training, kind of like the old Lane fantasy camps. We've got the Transformation Challenge that we do twice a year. That to me is kind of like my pride and joy. I love that. That just ended. The 90-day Transformation Challenge, we give away $25,000. So that's a big part of what we do. And then, us as a company, we're always trying to make sure we're doing everything right. And sometimes to continue to do things right, you can't just constantly be growing. You've got to be comfortable being stable. And that's where we're at right now.
I think that a lot of coaches need to hear that, right? Because the second somebody starts to get a roster that maybe feels a little uncomfortable for them on their own, the first thing they think of is either, okay, hire a coach or create another offer or whatever, when in reality, a lot of that refinement has to come to play. So I think it's important to say that, like, I think there has to be intentional periods of maintenance in your business, right? Because otherwise your delivery is going to fall through the cracks or whatever. So that's interesting for you to hear, because you've had such fast growth, right? Like you've had, like you said, the last few years have been, 2019 through 2021. I feel like a lot happened. And now you've like refined a lot. So I want to go back to you saying that you created this. I'm guessing I don't know if you had somebody come in and design it, but whatever you're using on the back end to monitor responses and all of that, have you thought about white labeling that, or is that?
I think so. We've had some discussions because I've had some of my clients who are actually coaching say, hey, I like your system. Can I use it? So it's definitely crossed my mind, but it's not completely like, technically perfect yet. So that's why when people ask me like, oh, like, why don't you do that? Or why don't you help people build their coaching business? So I'm like, well, because I'm still learning these things. Like these things are not, I'm not done doing it myself. So the platform, I've tried to use things like Trainerize and other versions of that, and nothing just fit what I do or what our company does. It felt very standard. I know some other coaching companies that they put all their workouts and all their clients on Trainerize. It just feels very impersonal. And my mission a couple of years ago was I wanted to take the word online out of online coaching. So I want it to feel like a very personal coaching relationship. I send a video every single week to my clients. Um, and that's something that I didn't have to do, because when I added that in, I was already doing very well, but it's helped me feel better about coaching. I feel, if I have the time to sit down and send somebody a video, they know exactly what I'm thinking, versus if someone's in an app like a Trainerize app and I just change their macros and cardio and say, good luck this week. That's like a very transactional relationship. And it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, now are you a coach? Are you AI? Are you just an app? So for me, coaching is, I want it to be more personal, not less personal. And that's what this, it's called, right now it's just called, I guess, the Pro Physique portal, but we've got, and the person that developed it's in-house. So like, she is one of my clients and she's just a savant when it comes to developing technology. Like if I ask her like, hey, can we do this? She's like, I don't know. And then she'll call me in 3 days and be like, hey, I figured it out. I'm like, you are a genius. She's like, literally, like, I remember watching that movie, The Social Network, and they would all like put their headphones on and they would just be writing code. And like, I'm going to write the Facebook code. I'm like, that's what she does. She literally just disappears for 3 days.
I love that though. That's what you need, right? You need somebody who's
Oh,
going
you have to. Listen, I tried outsourcing it. I had this idea 10 years ago. I saw this coming. I saw this, and I was so far ahead of the curve in trying to develop this. And I would hire developers and I'd give them $10,000 and be like, hey, I need a portal for all my clients to log in. They'd be like, cool. And they'd deliver something. And I'd be like, well, this doesn't do what I need it to do. Oh, that'll be another $10,000. I'd be like, why would I give you more money? You didn't give me what I asked for. Developers are shady as crap. So like, all of my friends that have been duped into hiring a company to help them build an app, this and that, here's $100,000. Cool. 6 months later, nothing. What do? There's no recourse. So I said, I'm done with that. And then Pro Physique only works in-house. I don't have a single person. I don't have a marketing person. I don't have a digital person. I don't have a director of coaching. Everyone is a Pro Physique employee. That's something that I've always said from the beginning I want. So like whenever someone emails me and they're like, hey, we really want to, partner with you on this. I'm like, sorry, I've already got in-house people doing this stuff. So.
Well, I think that's so smart too. A lot of what I do, same thing, right? People on my sales team are also coaches and vice versa, and clients have morphed into coaches and whatnot. So I think that you get to a certain point in your business where you only want people that are full-time you. And I don't even mean that it's necessarily like a 40-hour-a-week job, but people that are sold on your vision, right? Like they are all in on you and what you do. And a lot of the times when you outsource, if you're outsourcing a fractional hire, well, they're time with you is obviously fractionally there. So, I mean, I think that's so smart. And you've got probably thousands of people that are in your ecosystem, so to speak, right? Between all of your coaches and everything else. So I'm sure there's anything that you could need is probably within some coach's roster, right? I want to ask you, so just a few questions for coaches that are listening that are looking to build this team, and then we'll dive into the community and the culture aspect. But, how do you decide if somebody is the right fit? And I'm not even saying for your company necessarily, but if a coach is like, where do I start? How do I hire somebody? What advice would you give them?
So after running this company for 10 years now, this is what I've realized. It comes down to someone that really believes in what you're doing. That's all that matters to me, because we've hired people that had master's degrees and we've hired people that have, degrees in nutrition, but the philosophy was slightly different. They were a little bit, off of what we believed in, and it started off fine, but then gradually they start to show who they really are. Versus I would rather take someone who has no education, no experience, but they're all in on what we're doing, and I will train them. And that's really what we do. So we have a system that people have to go through with Dr. Joe
Hmm.
to get caught up on nutrition standards. I would rather do that than have someone come to me who's got this amazing resume and they're just looking for a place. Not interested. You know, that's something that I've learned. Not interested.
Well, and for you, that's got to be a fear, and maybe fear is the wrong word, but at least in the beginning, or something that has to cross your mind is like, hey, are you using my platform temporarily to gain clout and then jump ship, right? And I know that's not what you're looking for, right?
Well, to be fair, listen, we are independent contractors. All of the people that work for me, they're not technically employees, and you have to learn about employment law to understand what that means, but you can't make them do things without calling them an employee. And if you call them an employee, then you have to pay employment tax, and all these things change. And they don't want that, because a 1099 employee just gets paid what they make. So for me, I want people that believe in what we're doing. I want to help them grow. And if they reach a point where they're like, you know what, I've had a really good time, I would like to try running my own business, great. As long as they do it the right way, I wish them well. If they start trying to poach or steal clients and build up their roster off of me, we've fired people on the spot for that. You know, like it's not hard to know, but it also helps. That's part of the reason we developed our billing platform. So, you know, all of our clients are going through our billing platform. That really helps.
Oh, and I've seen that. Like, that is a nightmare where the coach, like the assistant coach, is collecting the income and supposed to pay the head coach. Like, absolutely not. Don't do that if you're listening. Like, do not do that. Okay, question for you then, and this is technical, and if you don't want to talk about your contracts, you obviously don't have to. I'm putting you on the spot here, but if you get a new assistant coach or coach, whatever you want to call them, is there like a minimum time frame that you have them commit to you for, or the business, or no?
No, because I'm very confident in the value that I provide. I'm not trying to make people work for me. That does not interest me. I have more people that want to be a part of Pro Physique than I have the space for currently. So for me, no, I don't believe in contract. I don't give contracts to my clients. Like, if they're not happy, okay, I need to do a better job making them happy. So, you know, because I have a lot of, you know, I'll have a consult with someone and they'll be like, well, I'm under contract with this team for 6 more months. And I'm like, what does that even mean? So you've got a coach that you don't want for the next 6 months. I don't want that. I don't want people tethered to me just because there's a contract. Same thing with coaches. I think as long as I understand that they can go whenever they want, it's going to make me perform better. The way I look at it, I work for them, not the other way around. Like, I work for those coaches. My job is to make sure and provide for them. The second that switches and I feel like they work for me, probably not going to be a business anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to look at it. I will say, I think I've had several, any coach I've ever worked with in terms of fitness has always been a bigger name, right? Like the Lanes or Cliff or now Jason. And none of those coaches have had contracts. And it makes sense in my head, because I'm thinking, okay, if somebody's working with you, what are they going to try to do? Are they really going to bail? They're going to feel great. You're not going to get like the bum on the street, hopefully, that's like, I'm going to work with Paul today. Like, they're not going to waste your time. Whereas like a lot of these coaches who are just starting their businesses, they don't have a name in the industry. I do think contracts are helpful, but I don't recommend like locking them in for a year. If somebody's really miserable, like, let your client go. I think that they're obviously, conversations to be had on that topic for sure. But I was just curious because I've heard big name coaches requiring like a 3-year commitment. I've heard of some coaches, if they leave before 5 years, which I think is a long ass time, they have to pay $5,000 to get out of their contract. Like crazy shit like that. So I was curious. I had a feeling that wasn't you though.
No, like long-term, Taeler, the way I see my business growing is probably through providing a home for coaches, you know, either if they're a part of Pro Physique or if they're a part of our, you know, client portal that does all the work for them. Because I think as coaches, the hardest part is once you start to get busy as a coach, you've still got to do all the other business stuff. You've still got to post, you've still got to do your billing, you've still got to pay your taxes. If that's as simple as a click of a button, you can actually go be a coach. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to provide for them, is like the ease of use, right? So yeah, I don't find the need for a contract. It's just,
Yeah,
I don't know. I believe in karma. I believe in doing things the
I
right
do
way.
too.
I don't
Hey,
know.
I hear
So
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime somebody has either like screwed somebody over on a contract or an agreement or whatever it is, I do agree with you on that. I do think that karma just, it comes back in weird ways. So I'm with you.
It's the weirdest thing. Every time I've ever had a client reach out to me and be like, hey, I know I signed up with you for a year and it's only been 2 months. I just got pregnant. Right. So like I could easily be like, well, you signed the contract for a year. I'm keeping your, $3,000 and that's sorry. I'll save your spot. Literally, as soon as I send the money back, I get a new person that'll be like, hey coach, I haven't talked to you in about a year, but I'm ready to sign up for a year again. And
I agree.
I'm like, wow, the universe really does work like that.
I agree. And like I said, even if you do have a contract in place, like for coaches listening out there, there are times, there are excuses that are actually valid, right? Like I think that you can tell the
Oh,
difference between somebody who's just
someone gets
doing some
hurt, sick,
bullshit.
loses,
Right.
yeah, if they lose their job, if I
Right.
remember the first month of COVID, I had a bunch of clients drop off. And believe me, I was like, oh man, this is okay, that's it, going out of business. And then literally I offered to write every single client I had a home workout program. I said,
Same. I did the same thing.
send me your home equipment. I was literally writing workout programs and people were like goblet squatting their dog.
Yep.
But that worked. And then the next month, I don't know what happened. Maybe everybody got their damn checks, but everyone just had an abundance of funds and they weren't traveling. And all of a sudden it was like, man, that 2020 was crazy.
Yeah. Let me pivot over to building this culture, right? Because that's something that I have always admired about you, for sure. Because any show I've gone to, any airport I go to, I swear I see a Pro Physique bag. Like I always see them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, like I always do. And then sometimes you are at my gym randomly, So
Oh yeah.
I I
Hidden gym. Yeah.
randomly just see you. So, whenever I saw your website that said, this family is like no other, I was like, that makes so much sense for Paul. And I assumed you had something like that, but I hadn't looked at your website in a long time. And so my question is, these coaches who are, let's say, sub six figures, just starting out, they're really trying to build that community and that family aspect. What advice would you give them?
Be there wherever they are. If you got one client at a show, go to the show. It's impossible, to minimize how important the personal aspect is of what we do, because we use the word online a lot and we use the word social media a lot. It's not social media, it's just social. It's not online coaching, it's just coaching. So I don't think of it that way. I go to the shows to spend time with my clients, to make sure that they're performing the best. And I go to expos to meet people. I go to events to see people. We did the event in your gym in Dallas in August. We had 30 people sign up for that. I honestly don't have time for that stuff. Like when I'm doing those things, I'm missing a day with my family or, missing a day with my friends. But those events are what drive your culture. So, for me, the early days, it was going to Lane's event as a participant, as an assistant. And then it turned into, I remember the first time I did an event and I invited him to speak and he was like, wow, that's crazy that you've come this far, that now I'm speaking at your events. And I'm like, yeah, like, but it's not easy. It's, you've got to have, I don't know, maybe I just have the right personality for it. I don't know what separates people that are able to build culture. I think it starts at the top, the way I treat people, with respect, and hopefully they get that from me. They feel better having seen me versus, sometimes you meet somebody that you look up to and you're like, damn, that was a letdown. I hope that's not the case. But yeah, so culture to me is all about the personal relationships you build with people.
Well, and a lot of the clients I work with, I would say only maybe 30% of the coaches that I work with are actually doing bodybuilding right now. But to your point, yes, if you have a client, either go to their show or have them pick a show that's somewhere near you if they're in some random city or something. I've had a lot of my clients compete in Dallas just because they're like, well, it's a big show. I know you're there. I feel safe that way. Okay, great, right? So yes, for sure. But then if you're a coach listening and you work with primarily Gen Pop, you're going to have a concentration of people somewhere, right? Do like a pop-up workout or something, just go get an Airbnb, invite your clients to go and just have a weekend together. Like, I think that community shit is like so freaking important. And where I see it go wrong is they focus on the online. So they're like, okay, should I have monthly calls? Bi-monthly calls? I'm like, no. That's not what people want. Like, they want time with you.
I tried that during COVID and it got a little boring.
Yeah, right. I
Like
mean, it's one thing
the
to have like,
Facebook, yeah,
yeah,
we all started doing the Zoom calls.
I know. I think that's when Zoom made like all of its money, honestly. That's when everyone got a Zoom account. Um, no, I agree. I just think that culture is something that it's not like there's a textbook answer for it, right? I think there's a lot of intentionality. And I think to your point, what builds it versus doesn't, number one, constantly showing the attention for each client every single week, every single check-in, right? Like you're doing the Loom videos. I tell all my clients to do that too. Loom videos, voice memos, all of that is so helpful because I know for you, I'm sure when you first implemented Loom videos, I'm sure clients were like, oh my God, Paul, thank you for sending me a video. Like, I'm sure some people said that.
Well, what's really funny to me is like, yeah. So the first thing that I thought was, dear God, how am I going to send everybody a video? Well, a company by the name of BombBomb came out and it actually had a video tool that works inside of Microsoft Office.
Okay.
So like I would have my email open and just click a button and it would record me talking. So similar to Loom, if you use Google Chrome, it's a Chrome plugin, same kind of thing. So when that happened, I was like, wow, someone like answered my prayers. Because previously you would have to like record a video, upload it to something. I couldn't do that multiple times per day. So technology allowed me to actually be the coach I wanted to be. And something strange happens when you send people a video. They have less replies. So if you send an email to someone and you say, okay, this week we're going to, add 10 minutes of cardio and we're going to, drop 30 grams of carbs. I would get a message back. Okay. Hey coach, are you mad at me? Well, why would I be mad at you? Well, I don't know. You didn't say much. There's not much to say. We just need to make an adjustment. Okay. Are we on track? So now I've gotten 4 emails from the same person versus me going, hey, Sarah, good job this week. We're a little stalled. So I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments. I love where we're at. We're on schedule. Let's just keep the train moving. Boom. Done. They feel better. I feel better. There's less error in like texting and someone assuming they know how you sound. Yeah. So it actually made my job better.
I agree. I mean, I even do check-ins with my business coaching clients and just the Loom videos. It's like they can just hear the inflection. You can walk them through a document. Like it's just easier, to be honest. It saves my fingers also. Like selfishly, I like it better. But to your point, yeah, because when you work with Elaine Norton, love him to death, but every single week it was like add 5, add 2. And I'm like, cool.
Listen, men do well with that. Like he was my coach and I never really questioned it. I was like, okay, that's what he needs me to do.
No, yeah.
But I'll tell you this, when I first started coaching, I would say add 20 carbs this week. Excuse me, I need more than this from you. You're my coach. I don't need to do, I was like, oh crap. Okay.
Those women, they need more.
And honestly, it's just a personality type, right? Some clients have actually said, hey coach, can you not send the videos? Cause I don't want to listen to them for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I was like, okay, I'll just tell you what to do. And if you have any questions, you let me know. Then they'll request a video. Hey coach, can you send a video on this topic for me? But some people don't want to listen. They, so it's a personality thing. So I would say 99% of them prefer the videos, but
yeah,
it's just,
yeah. And I will say there are, of course, people that are going to like want them or don't want them or whatever, but I do think for that touch, it's really nice. So if you're talking about, obviously you've been doing this for a long time, how to get results. You are getting, I mean, how many titles do you have? Like I don't know, where are you at now with?
I've never been a counter. I mean, I've definitely got over 100 pro cards, over 100 overalls. Basically at this point, I just want 1 bikini Olympia title. I've got 3 bikini Olympians this year.
All, like basically.
I mean, if you told me 4 years ago I'd be where I'm at now, I would have called you a liar. But it's just one of those things where you just constantly just kind of step up your goal to the next thing. Like I just used to want one IFBB pro card. Then I just wanted like one person to go to the Olympia. Now I just want to win the Olympia, like, so
Yeah.
it's just constantly like setting the next goal to achieve.
And those are the stages of it. Like, so I just think it's a crazy goal, but the fact that it is within reach for you is so cool, because
I had number 4 in the world, and I got a feeling this year I'm going to have as many as 3 in the top 10. I got some powerhouse girls competing at this Olympia.
Yeah, very cool. So if you're talking to the coach who is struggling to kind of like define or sell their framework, struggling to get clients, like what would you tell them?
I mean, I can only tell them what worked for me. I think we all have things that we're good at. I am not good at writing. And I might even be good at writing. I just can't stand to do it. So Lane used to always say to me, hey, write articles, because bodybuilding.com will let you write articles for their website and muscular development, and the people read the articles, and then you build that never made sense to me. One day I had a client ask me a question in my email, and then I got the same question 5 minutes later from another client, and I got the same question 5 minutes later from another client. I'm like, what is going on? Why are they all asking me the same question? And I figured it out. Okay, it was they had watched something on YouTube about keto or something, right? And I was like, okay, so if I have all these clients asking me, it's just easier if I make a video and put it on YouTube. So I did. I said, hey, I just want to answer your question. I didn't realize at the time that YouTube was going to be what it is. No, I don't think none of us did. So for me, getting in front of a camera and talking felt natural. I love to be in front of people. I love to get in front of a camera. I can get up on a stage. I'm very comfortable talking live. So my YouTube channel has, for me, been my conveyance to people. So you got to find what yours is. You can be the best coach in the world, but if you can't put out information, sorry, you are not going to survive. And likewise, you can be a terrible coach, but great at putting out information. You're probably going to keep, the Brittany Dawn example. I'm like, for whatever reason, she was engaging. She was having lots of people sign up with her, but she was terrible at her job. She got sued by the state of Texas. So like, find a way to engage with people, whatever that is for you. If it's Instagram, if it's Threads, if it's TikTok, if it's whatever's out there for you, find your thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like everyone has a different beginning, right? But for the coach who doesn't have a mentor in the space and is just trying to build their platform, that's always the most challenging thing for them, is like the content, the marketing, getting new clients, getting new leads, right? Like I cannot picture you like DMing people, like that's not something that you're probably like, you know what I mean? No, but
I probably have 100 DMs right now that I need to answer because people ask me questions all the time. And I realize that's a privilege, but it's also low on my priority list.
Right. Well, you have a ton of people coming in your pipeline, right? But for the coaches that don't, like that work like has to be done. And to your point.
I mean, if the roles were reversed, this is what I would do right now. I would be going on Instagram. I would be going on Twitter, or I don't know what all the platforms are now. And I would be engaging with people. I would be like, hey, great job, with no expectation. I love me some Gary Vee. Gary Vee is my boy. So like, the greatest thing about putting out YouTube on content when you have no following, no one cares. Put out a video, make it terrible. You might get one person to comment. Great. Put out another video, put out 100 videos. Who cares? Once you start to see how your response is on these platforms, then you'll start to realize, okay, now I know what I'm doing. Now I know what I'm, focusing on. So yeah, if I had to start all over, I would just be starting from scratch with like here's the way I think of it. The higher I have my clients, the lower I have bandwidth to put out content. If you swap those, I got time to put out content. That's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You can do it with your iPhone.
Well, and that's, this is kind of the battle that I have with coaches that I talk to, right? Is like the people that are not at your level at all. They're building their businesses, right? And they're like, oh God, like the DMs take so much time. I'm not good at writing. Like, I don't really like putting my face on camera. It's like, what's the alternative? Like, do you want to build a business or not? Because you have to talk to people to get clients, right? Like you have to talk about what you do. And showcase testimonials and showcase your process. And like you said, like when you post a ton of transformations, you notice that more people come to you. And I know people are already coming to you, but there is a correlation between more content, more sales, as long as it's targeted and not, generic bullshit. But I just find that so many entrepreneurs, and I think that's why so few of us truly build something that is going to last, is because of the lack of just like diligence. Like, what would you say is like the most important trait of a successful entrepreneur?
Probably not worried about what other people think. I think the hardest thing for me when I started putting out content was like, oh man, no one's going to like this. And when I talk to people about putting out a video, they're like, well, I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right lighting. I know I should do YouTube, and I'm like, you don't need to do any of that stuff. I go, no one's going to see it anyway. If you haven't, so I'll tell you what really put me over the hump with social media stuff was watching Gary Vee years ago. And he said, challenge yourself to put out 7 videos in 7 days on YouTube. And I was like, okay. Day 1 probably took me 4 hours to shoot, edit, upload. Day 2 probably took me an hour. By day 3 and 4, it was taking me 20 minutes to put out a video. After 7 days, I had like doubled my subscribers, had a ton of inquiries, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, obviously I think the metrics aren't going to match now because that was a decade ago. But the point is like, just not having the fear of failure, or just not worried that you're going to look silly. I think, some people, I don't want to put out content. I feel silly. That's one thing great about Lane. He's fearless. Whatever new platform comes out, he is on there. He is doing it. So I got to witness Lane firsthand, just on all the platforms before anybody. He was on Twitter before anybody. He was on Instagram before anybody. And just, for me, a 47-year-old guy, the next platform comes out. What's the new one? Is it TikTok? Is that no, there's another one. Threads. No, that one was done. I think TikTok was the last one that kind of took off.
Yeah.
And even I was like, oh, I don't want to do music and like lip syncing. But then you start to, so I did the Gary Vee thing. I said, all right, I'm going to put out 1 video every day. Sure enough, you just start to notice trends. You go, oh, this is what's popular. Go on the platform, actually absorb it. Like, go on there for an hour. Think of that as work. A lot of us think of like social media as like time wasted. Sorry, but you can't learn it without consuming it. If you're only in access with a platform as you make a post and you go away, you are not going to be successful. You've got to be on there for several hours over the course of a week. And just, you'll start to notice like, oh, I keep seeing the same type of video on TikTok. This must be what people want to see. Cool. The thing I talk about with my videographer all the time is that success leaves clues. I don't have to go on YouTube and figure out the formula. I can type in how to get shredded, go watch the top 5 videos and see what those people do. Wow, they really edited. A lot of cutaways, a lot of zoom in and zoom outs, a lot of B-roll. Hey, that stuff works. Yeah, it takes time to figure it out, but it's a formula. And once you figure out what's working, you can apply that to yourself. But yeah, I think a lot of people get in their own way trying to worry about if it's going to be good or not. It's not going to be good right away. It's just not.
I always say that the number one trait, at least that I think really creates a successful entrepreneur, is curiosity, which like you led into. That's why I'm bringing it up, is because I think so many people are just expecting the answers to come to them. And even if you have a mentor or somebody that you look up to or whatever, right? Like, you have to get curious about how things work. And I think that so many new coaches get frustrated because they tried for 7 days, they tried for 30 days, they tried for 90 days, and they all of a sudden don't have this amazing business because people out there are advertising, you can build a 7-figure business working 3 hours a day. And it's like, that's fucking bullshit, right? And
the word passive income is my favorite thing. Like, people have this idea that like you build a business and then you just get to sit on the beach. Who wants to sit on the beach every day? That's boring as shit. Yeah, it's fun to go to the beach for 2 or 3 days, but then I'm bored.
Same.
Building the business is the fun part.
Exactly. And again, like, just like you like solving problems with your clients, it's not like you get to a point in your business where problems go away. They just constantly evolve and they constantly change. I mean, I'm learning shit every single day, and I'm sure you are too.
Well, I mean, so I actually have a master's degree in business administration, and it's one of the things you learn about business is that there are no unique products, there are no unique services. So what makes businesses stand out is the support they provide and the people that provide it. So no matter how you might think you're in a niche where you're killing it, I promise you, someone's about to nip at your heels and start taking your business if you're not being innovative, right? So that's one of the main things of owning a business is that it cannot remain static. I mean, you want to be Kmart? Kmart ruled the world. They don't even exist anymore. Toys R Us ruled the world. You know what they did? They started letting Amazon ship their toys. Whoops. Right? Instead of creating, like, think about that. Like the cab companies, they could have created an app for the cabs, but they didn't. And Uber comes along and wipes them out. So if you're not constantly evolving your business, and this is why I'm reinvesting all of our time and energy into building a platform for our coaches, because I see that potentially as what's going to differentiate my company from yours. Are you on a custom proprietary platform, or are you using the same thing, the cookie cutter that everyone else is using, right? So what makes your business different? Is it, and are you taking that and evolving it over time?
And even if you're just starting out your business and you don't have the app or whatever, it's like, it's not necessarily that, Joey gives macros so differently than Sarah. It's you, like, you are also a differentiating factor. And I think so many coaches put on this like coach face when they get on their social media, and they're not letting anyone get to know them or their quirks or whatever. And I don't have to treat it like it's a, blog necessarily, or a vlog rather. But, if your personality isn't coming through, then somebody's going to hire somebody else, right? Because you may have the best solution, the best answer, but if somebody doesn't feel like they can trust you and they like you, then it's going to be really hard to invest too. So I think coaches forget about that aspect. Like they have a really hard time being
that's
vulnerable.
honestly where I think I made the best decisions. Was the two things I focused on early on was YouTube and podcasting with Lauren. And to this day, people will come up to me like, "Hey, what happened with Lauren? Aren't you doing Redefine Healthy Radio anymore?" And I'm like,
Redefine Healthy Radio was all I listened to during prep, man.
well, I got good news for you. I just had a call with Lauren today. We are going to do a limited run of like 10 episodes.
I see Lauren's actually speaking at my event in a few weeks, so I'll say
Bring
hi.
it up to her. Bring it up. So yeah,
I will.
we're working out the details now. So yeah.
Nice. Hell yeah. I don't know. It's funny. I love my podcast. I've loved doing it for years, but I don't listen to podcasts. Like it sounds, that's like kind of contradicting, but I loved Redefine Healthy because you two were just y'all were a great duo for sure. And it made the stair mill like
it's hard to recreate that chemistry. And that's something that I've realized, over the years is like, so I hadn't seen Lauren for more than a year, and she lives a mile away from me. She literally lives right there, other side of my neighborhood. But like, her life went in a different direction. I'm at a show every weekend. She's no longer in the competition world. She was at NPC Universe, and I just messaged her and I said, "Hey, I see you're in, Universe. Do you want to go get some dinner?" And I'm telling you, it was like we had never missed a beat. We were cracking up. We were laughing for like an hour. And I'm like, we need to go back and do some podcasting again. Because sometimes you don't realize it when you're in it, just how cool it is until you can look back at it. We still have that, like, I don't know, that back and forth. She's like the quirky to my like normal. I don't know what it is, but we definitely just make each other laugh for like an hour at a time.
No, that's really, I'm excited. Is that a 2024 thing?
Oh, I think it's going to happen soon. We're working on the details. I don't have my, so when we were doing that, I had my own little podcast studio at my house. I've got room here to do it, so I may just have to bring the equipment in here, but we'll see. We'll figure it out.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited for that. To me, that's a great way to end. Now I have a little nugget, some insider knowledge.
There you go.
I'll listen to it in the mornings on my treadmill walks. But is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to share about culture, community, any advice you got for coaches listening to this?
I mean, at a certain point, you got to stop listening to advice and just go do shit and get it wrong and make mistakes. And I'll say this. I love messing up. I love putting out a YouTube video and it does terrible. I love making Instagram posts and it does terrible. I love going to a show and my client gets last. And here's why, because you learn a lot of lessons a lot, and you learn how to apply it and get better. If you're not a little bit hurt by failure, then you're not going to want to get better. So I don't know, just don't be afraid of failure. Just go do things and see what works and doesn't work. I think that's my favorite piece of advice. And that's why I loved Gary Vee for all those years. Cause you know, you kind of get into a thing where you go, I want to do it right. I want to do it right. There is no right. Like, listen to your gut, go do it wrong. You know, yeah, you can listen to people's advice, but if it doesn't sound right for you, try something else, you know?
If you don't fuck around, you don't find out, you know?
There you go.
I can't top that. We're going to have to end on that. All right, Paul, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks, Taylor.